Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, here's the question that keeps me thinking. Are we, fundamentally built for chains? Is hierarchy less of a choice and more? Well, more like our basic operating system.
It's a really uncomfortable question, isn't it? But you look at history, even at, say, intentional communities trying to be flat,
Yeah.
leaders seem to pop up anyway.
Yeah.
Why is that pole there?
Yeah, exactly. So imagine this, right? You get to design a whole new society, knowing everything we know about people, the good, the bad, the ugly. Would you, secretly build in a hierarchy?
Yeah.
Just to stop it all from descending into total chaos? Be honest. What's your gut say?
Well, that urge,
Mhm.
it might just come down to needing predictability.
Yeah.
The world's complex, right?
Yeah.
Uncertainty is deeply unsettling for most people.
Mhm.
Hierarchy, good or bad, it gives you a kind of map.
Or think about this. Shipwrecked. Total chaos, no rules, no leaders. What's your first move? Are you the one grabbing charge, telling people what to do, maybe even fighting for it? Or are you desperately looking around for someone, anyone, to just take control, to give orders? Where do you naturally fall, deep down?
It's fascinating. Even in small temporary groups, you see it. Someone steps up, others kind of fall in line. Often it's not even spoken, but it's definitely there. Is that learned, or is it just us?
I stayed way too long in a job that was just soul-crushing. Why? Security, I told myself. Responsibility. But the real reason, the one I didn't want to admit,
Mm-hmm.
the thought of pure freedom, no structure, it was terrifying. Completely paralyzing. So I chose the cage, the familiar cage. Ever done that? Traded freedom for, predictable bars.
Oh, absolutely. That fear of the unknown, the sheer weight of having to make every choice,
Mm-hmm.
it's heavy. Hierarchy gives you a path,
Yeah.
even if it's not really your path.
Let me talk such a big gambit. Equality, right? We demand it, but then look at us online. Refreshing follower counts, chasing VIP status, that little blue check mark. Are we really trying to flatten the pyramid? Or are we just scrambling, elbowing each other to get a bit higher up so we can look down?
It's a conflict, isn't it? The desire for equal opportunity slams right into our competitive nature. Maybe the fight isn't against hierarchy itself, but against feeling like we got a raw deal within it.
Think about social media. You hit follow. It's like swearing fealty almost. Then unfollow, boom, digital guillotine. Is this really new? Or just, I don't know, feudalism with better graphics. Digital feudalism.
The tools change, sure, but that dance, influence, deference, who's in, who's out, that's ancient. Patronage, reputation in villages, the internet just puts it on steroids.
Okay, here's a really dark thought. What if? What if the deepest human need isn't freedom? What if it's actually the comfort of a system, any system, one that tells you what to do, where you fit, but whispers that it's all your choice?
That is a chilling idea.
What if that's the ultimate slavery, the invisible kind, where you think you're free, but you're just following a script you didn't even know existed?
The cage where the bars are so internalized, we mistake them for our own bones, our own desires. Yeah, that's profoundly disturbing.
I worked at this place once, prided itself on being flat, no titles, just collaboration. Sounds great, right?
Huh? How did that work out?
Within months, ghost hierarchies everywhere.
Wow.
Unspoken bosses, power plays disguised as influence or mentorship. The irony was just thick.
Yeah, human dynamics have a way of routing around the org chart, don't they? Informal power pops up based on personality, maybe expertise, maybe just sheer force of will. It suggests we need structure, even if we have to create it under the radar.
So here's the kicker, the question that really makes you squirm. Do we actually want autonomy? Real, messy, difficult freedom?
Or
Or are we just terrified of being at the bottom? Is all our talk of rebellion, our fighting spirit, is it really about freedom, or is it just ambition wearing a mask, a desire to build our own ladder, not tear it down?
that's the core tension, absolutely. Trying to pick apart genuine self-determination from just, jockeying for position. Socrates wrestled with this stuff, didn't he? True freedom versus just thinking you're free.
We always say power corrupts, but maybe that's too easy. What if power doesn't corrupt? What if it just pulls back the curtain on that primal part of us that maybe kind of likes being in charge, or even unsettlingly needs that feeling of order, even if it feels like a boot on the neck?
Power definitely acts like an amplifier. It can magnify what's already there. And the structure itself, well, it encourages certain behaviors, doesn't it? Some good, some not so good. Jung would probably talk about the shadow self emerging when someone gets authority.
Look at history. Rome, legions, slaves, feudalism, lords, serfs. Now, 0-hour contracts, the gig economy. Is that progress or just a slicker way to manage dependency?
The methods evolve, yeah. Tech changes, society shifts.
Yeah.
But the basic principle, One group having leverage over another for gain, that seems pretty constant.
Okay, take a breath. Think about the hierarchies you navigate every day, the ones you maybe even benefit from. Whose quiet work, whose compliance makes your life run smoother.
Recognizing our own place in it, even if it's passive. That's tough. But crucial, right? To see how these systems keep going. We're all participants, like it or not.
You'd probably say you hate the idea of a caste system, right? Rigid, unfair.
Of course.
But how fast do you mentally size someone up? Job title, school where they live. Is your beloved meritocracy just the hierarchy where you feel you've earned your spot?
That belief in pure meritocracy, that can be a blinder, can't it? Makes us ignore how much the starting line matters. Nietzsche might have called that a kind of slave morality, finding ways to justify the status quo.
All right, brutal honesty time, a thought experiment. Would you rather be a totally forgotten nobody in a world of perfect, absolute equality, or a famous, celebrated king in a system built on, like, obvious, brutal hierarchy? What does your gut actually say, not what you should say?
Wow. That really forces you to confront it, doesn't it? The desire for recognition, for status, versus the ideal of equality. Where do identity and worth really come from?
Think about your own circles, office, family, friends. There's always that subtle dance, isn't there? Who leads, who follows, who makes the decisions, usually? Who just kind of goes along with things, maybe simmering, but never really pushing back? Are you just watching, or are you in the dance?
These little micro-hierarchies, they absolutely mirror the bigger picture. They show how pervasive these power dynamics are, just woven into daily life. A microcosm.
Would you follow an order you knew was wrong if your job was on the line and force a rule you thought was unfair just to keep the peace, avoid rocking the boat? How much of what we call obedience is just fear? Fear dressed up as being practical.
The fear of consequences, social, economic, whatever, it's a powerful force. It can definitely push ethics aside, especially when there's clear authority involved.
Look, I consider myself a huge believer in individual freedom. It's core to who I think I am. But I have to admit, there's a weird comfort sometimes in clear rules, in knowing your place, even if it feels small. Is that just me being weak, or is it
Human. That tension is universal, I think. The pull towards freedom versus the comfort of structure. We seem to need both independence and belonging somehow.
Remember the Stanford prison experiment? How quickly those ordinary students became cruel guards or broken prisoners?
Yeah, chilling.
Were they evil? Or did the structure itself, just the power dynamic they were put in, unlock something dark? Something maybe lurking in all of us?
It's a really stark reminder, isn't it? How fast people can internalize roles in a hierarchy, even roles that go against their basic values.
Sometimes I wonder, maybe people don't really want to be led. Maybe secretly they want to be ruled. Because real freedom, the kind with total responsibility, it's heavy. Maybe too heavy for many people to actually want to carry.
That definitely speaks to the psychological weight of endless choices. There can be a kind of relief in handing over some of that control to someone or something you see as an authority.
We get so fired up, right? Smash the patriarchy, decolonize, all important stuff. But then we willingly submit to the tyranny of the algorithm, the dopamine hit of likes and shares. So who are we really bowing to in the end?
Our loyalties get tangled, don't they? We can critique the big systems, but still get caught up in the immediate social pressures, the digital hierarchies.
Okay, be brutally honest just with yourself right now. Ever stayed quiet when someone else got blamed unfairly?
Yeah.
Ever felt that little jolt of satisfaction from being in the know, having info that put you slightly above others?
Mm,
You let yourself off the hook, right?
yeah.
Justified it somehow. That's hierarchy whispering, a hierarchy of self-preservation.
Those small moments, those little acts of self-interest, often unconscious, they add up. They help keep the whole structure stable, in a way.
I saw this nature documentary, Chimpanzees, the power struggles, the deference to the alpha, the pretty brutal consequences for challenging the order.
Mm.
It looked disturbingly familiar. Are we really just fancy apes pretending we've outgrown that primal stuff?
Well, looking at primate behavior certainly gives clues about the deep biological roots, doesn't it? Suggests the impulse towards hierarchy might be way older than civilization itself.
Okay, flip it around. You condemn oppressive systems, right? But what if, in some corner of your own life, you're the system, the subtle gatekeeper, the one whose approval matters, the one who holds a quiet dominance, maybe without even realizing it?
That's why constant self-examination is so important, isn't it? Looking at our own pockets of power, however small. Thinking about our impact. Like Marcus Aurelius said, understanding ourselves is key to understanding the system.
We crave feeling empowered. So maybe we call submitting to corporate culture ambition? Or chasing likes networking? Are we just really well-paid slaves to the story of our own success?
The language we use is powerful, yeah. It can definitely mask the reality of power dynamics. Ambition sounds better than conforming to get ahead.
Think about most of human history. The vast majority weren't leading revolutions. They were farming, building, fighting wars, basically accepting their lot. Were they all just sheep? Or is that quiet acceptance the default survival mode within a hierarchy?
For huge numbers of people, yeah, fitting in, complying,
Yeah.
it was probably the smartest, safest way to survive. Pragmatism often outweighs rebellion.
But maybe this deep pull, this instinct to lead or follow, maybe it's not really about order or ambition. What if it's simpler? What if it's rooted in terror? A terror of true chaotic equality. What if we're secretly scared of a world with no one above us, and crucially, no one below us to make us feel secure?
That fear, the fear of a truly level playing field without the usual scaffolding of who's who, that's powerful. And yeah, often completely unacknowledged. It taps right into our deepest anxieties about uncertainty.
What if every time you proudly took charge, it wasn't strength? What if it was just a desperate move to control your own fear, your fear of being insignificant? What if your helpful guidance was just manipulation with a smile?
Examining those underlying motives, especially around power. Yeah, it can reveal some really uncomfortable truths about our own insecurities.
You probably still think, even after all this, that if things got really bad, you'd be the hero, right? Leading the way, speaking truth to power.
Yeah, it's easy to think that, isn't it? Until you're actually faced with real pressure, the comfort of the known hierarchy. It's surprisingly strong.
We aren't born wanting chains, we're born wanting connection, belonging. And sometimes the price the tribe demands for acceptance is putting on the collar, willingly, smiling even, to show you belong. Maybe that's the deadliest hierarchy, the one we confuse with love.
That need for connection, for belonging, it's fundamental. And yeah, it can absolutely lead us to conform, even when it costs us autonomy. Being part of the in-group is a powerful drive.
So back to that first question. You never really answered it, did you? Society collapses tomorrow. First move, build a throne or look for one to kneel before. Who are you, really, when the structures are gone?
Stripped bare like that, yeah. Our core tendencies around power, they'd probably become pretty obvious pretty fast. The wiring would show itself.
If this whole thing has made you feel uncomfortable, uneasy, good. Maybe send it to someone you know who seems a bit too sure of themselves. Too certain about how things are. Just poke that certainty a little.
Challenging conversations are vital, aren't they?
Yeah.
Especially for people who seem outwardly confident. Keeps us all thinking.
And what if your moral compass, the thing you pride yourself on, what if it's not innate goodness? What if it's just a really, really well-honed survival instinct for navigating the power structures that exist? Not right, not wrong, just effective.
Morality is so often tangled up with the systems we live in, isn't it? It shapes what we even see as fair or just. What counts as moral can be surprisingly relative.
Which prison is worse? Visible slavery, chains you can see. Or invisible slavery, the cage built by your own need for approval, your fear of stepping out of line. Which chains are harder to break?
The internalized ones, almost certainly. The ones we don't even recognize as chains. They're often the strongest because we help maintain them ourselves.
We talk about cancel culture all the time. Is it accountability? Or is it just the digital mob enforcing the latest hierarchy of opinion? Brutally fast. Yesterday's pariah is today's guru if the story shifts just right. Same old game, just a faster coliseum.
Social pressure, ostracism. They've always existed. Digital platforms just amplify it, make it immediate, global, creates new, volatile hierarchies.
Imagine, you get absolute power. You decide everyone's place, everyone's value, total control. Could you actually wield that without becoming a monster? Or is the very desire for that kind of control the first step towards corruption?
Concentrated power. It's just inherently dangerous, isn't it? The potential for abuse is huge, regardless of good intentions at the start. History is pretty clear on that.
Just take a quick mental inventory, all the little ways you defer today, the boss you don't question, the expert opinion you just accept, the social rule you follow without thinking. Who are you serving with that deference, really?
Looking at those automatic responses.
Yeah.
Yeah. It shows how much we internalize hierarchy without even noticing.
People praise you, maybe? So agreeable, easygoing, great team player. Is that good? Or does it just mean you're really, really good at adapting to servitude, making your own cage comfortable?
Agreeableness is useful, sure, for getting along. But it's worth checking if it's agreeableness or just passive acceptance of something that maybe isn't right or isn't fair. The line can be blurry.
A historian once said something chilling, that elites stay in power less by force and more by shaping what people want. What desires have been subtly planted in you that keep you in your place?
Understanding how our wants are shaped by society, by advertising, by culture, that's key to seeing the power structures clearly. Think about consumerism, for example.
What's the real ethical cost of your comfort, your position in whatever hierarchies you're in? Whose exploitation, whose silence, whose overlooked work is maybe propping you up?
Recognizing that interconnectedness, it forces a kind of accountability, doesn't it? Even if our advantage is indirect.
You think you're an independent thinker, a rebel, maybe. How many of your radical opinions are just the standard lines of your particular tribe, your anti-establishment establishment?
True independence means questioning everything, even our own groups, our own cherished beliefs. Conformity hides everywhere.
Tyranny doesn't actually need a tyrant, it just needs widespread obedience, a collective choice for comfort over courage. That's the quiet foundation of every hierarchy.
Passive compliance.
Yeah.
It can be just as powerful as active enforcement in keeping things the way they are. Silence can look like agreement.
Critical question. Who defines progress? The people at the top or the people at the bottom? And whose definition are you unconsciously using to measure your own life?
Yeah, progress is rarely a neutral term. It usually reflects the interests of those holding the megaphone.
I used to think my drive for leadership was noble. Took me a long time, a lot of uncomfortable moments to see how much was just needing validation, fear of being nobody, my ambition. It was often just a fancy chain I put on myself.
Recognizing those deeper psychological drivers, insecurity, need for approval, it's humbling, but it leads to a more honest understanding of why we do what we do.
Nietzsche's will to power. What if it's not just the drive to dominate? What if it also includes that weirdly human willingness to be dominated, to hand over the burden of self to something bigger, even if it's potentially awful?
That concept forces us to see both sides, doesn't it? The push for agency and the pull towards belonging, towards structure. It's a constant dance.
Right now, your family, your friends, your work, there are unspoken pecking orders. You're part of them, maybe enforcing them without thinking. Can you feel that subtle pressure, even now?
Becoming really aware of those micro-hierarchies, that's the first step, seeing how they shape us constantly.
Ever compromise your values, just once, to keep your place,
Yeah.
to get ahead, that little sting you might still feel sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the brand of the hierarchy, burning itself onto you.
Those moral compromises, they really show how strong hierarchical pressures can be on our ethics.
Maybe there's no natural state, no inherent freedom or slavery. Maybe there's just power dynamics, shifting, brutal, constant. And morality. Maybe it's just the story we tell ourselves to cope, to find some meaning, some comfort wherever we land in the struggle.
Our moral stories absolutely help us make sense of things, justify the way things are, provide a framework, fair or not.
What if you're not meant to be master or slave? What if you're just a cog in a machine much older, bigger, and more indifferent than you can imagine? Does that thought free you or crush you?
Thinking about being part of vast, impersonal systems, it raises huge questions about agency, purpose, meaning, doesn't it?
Okay, final choice, right now. Terrifying, chaotic freedom, a world with zero hierarchy, or predictable structure, knowing your place, even if it's low. Which door do you walk through?
That choice. It lays bare our deepest fears and desires about security versus freedom, what we truly value most.
They say you can't dismantle the master's house with the master's tools, but what if the desire for a master, for hierarchy, isn't just out there? What if it's one of your internal tools, a way you manage your own anxiety?
Our internal world definitely mirrors and reinforces the external structures. That desire for order can absolutely be an internal drive.
Imagine a benevolent dictator arrives, promises total safety, prosperity, order, the price, total obedience. Would a tiny part of you, the tired part, the scared part, whisper, yes?
That scenario really pushes the button, doesn't it? The trade-off between security and autonomy. The appeal of absolute authority, especially when things feel chaotic.
Think about wanting a mentor, a guru. Is it wisdom you seek? Or just a new master? The career ladder you're climbing, is it ambition? Or just a pre-approved path of servitude with slightly better views?
Questioning those motives, yeah. It reveals how much we operate within existing frameworks, maybe even seek them out without realizing it.
Future generations, looking back at us, our corporate ladders, our influencer worship, our quiet conformity. What names will they have for our invisible chains? And what excuses will we offer for wearing them?
Historical perspective is humbling. What seems normal now? Yeah, it
Now,
might look very different later, maybe even bafflingly oppressive.
maybe the only real freedom from this hierarchical instinct is constant, painful awareness, always questioning why we want to lead, why we're willing to follow, always.
That self-awareness, that commitment to keep reflecting, it's probably the only tool we have to navigate this, maybe even transcend it sometimes.
I have to admit, I've craved leadership and I've run screaming from it. I've submitted, I've rebelled, played all the parts. And the only honest thing I can say is the wiring feels real. It feels undeniably there. The danger isn't the wiring itself, it's pretending it doesn't exist.
Acknowledging those internal pulls, those biases,
Yeah.
it's the necessary first step if we want to build something better, something more equitable.
Look, we're all complicit somehow. We all benefit from someone else's submissions somewhere down the line. The least we can do here, now, is try to admit that uncomfortable truth.
Recognizing that shared role. Maybe that's the catalyst for actually trying to find different ways to organize ourselves.
Remember way back at the start, asking if you'd build hierarchy into a new society? Maybe the real question now is, can you even imagine a human society that works without it? Or is that failure of imagination the ultimate proof of how deep these chains go?
Imagining real alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, that takes a huge leap, requires challenging our most basic assumptions about who we are.
You're not just your resistance, you're not just your submission, you are the negotiation, the constant, uncomfortable, maybe terrifying negotiation between those two impulses. That's the human dance.
Right there.
It's dynamic, isn't it? Always shifting, influenced by who we are inside and what the world throws at us, a constant balancing act.
If you feel like listening to this again,
Do it.
do it. Second time, maybe those chains feel a bit tighter. Third time, maybe you recognize your own hands helping to forge them. Yeah, revisiting challenging ideas definitely deepens the understanding, forces more self-examination.
If this deep dive shook you up a bit, made you question where you stand, share it. Share it with someone who seems a little too comfortable, maybe. Maybe they're the leader you need to question, or the follower you could help wake up.
Dialogue is key. Sharing different viewpoints helps everyone get a clearer picture of these complex issues.
This has been The Deep Dive. We don't do easy answers. We aim for sharper questions. Because the most dangerous hierarchy, it's always the one we don't examine. So, right now, why do you believe what you believe? About power, about your place, about your chains.
Asking those hard questions, that's the beginning of a more conscious relationship with the hierarchies that shape us all.